And can I thank the British public for bringing this petition forward so that we can debate it today, and those who've led on this. And I think it comes from a place of real strong feeling amongst parents. This isn't some blind moral panic. This is lived experience of anybody who has raised a teenager in the last few years. My wife and I spend a lot of our time discussing our own parenting, and like I think many parents, we agonise over whether or not we're getting it right. On the one hand, wanting to not be too autocratic and wanting to give our children the freedom to engage in a social space that their friends are in, whilst also seeing and knowing that we're allowing them access to something that we believe is causing them damage. And can I also thank the member for Whitehaven and Workington for what I thought was an excellent speech, really setting out the strong evidence base for why it's imperative that we as a Parliament act. And there's been some excellent speeches from across all the parties in this place today. And I think it's because, and I was reflecting, were I to ever be fortunate enough to place where he is in the private member's ballot, what if I could do one thing to improve our country right now, what would I do? And I think he's got it right. I think it has to be about what we do to protect the next generation, because, and it's not cliche to say that they are all our futures, and that we face an epidemic of youth mental unwellness today that's holding back a generation. We know the damage, and many people have spoken well today about the damage that social media is doing to our children. Apps that are designed to addict, to require you to get streaks. And this affects concentration, and we know this. An overconnectedness that's driving anxiety and disrupting children's sleep. Content that distorts children's relationship with reality, about body and about lifestyle, and which is damaging to self-esteem. Content which, I'd say, the fact that some of these sites don't host explicitly pornographic material in the sense that certain body parts are covered, often children are overexposed to a general timbre of content which is still sexualising the human body and causing them to think in sexualised terms at a young age. The challenge of apps that are designed for children to communicate through images, which is driving the phenomenon known as sexting. And despite schools' valiant efforts to teach children not to do this, we know that it's happening, and it's happening at a worrying scale. And we also know that children are overconnected to a social space which is completely unsupervised, where they can encounter humiliation and bullying. I had a conversation not long ago with a child and asked the question, well, why don't you just not go online? But the response came back, because I need to know what people are saying about me. As the Honourable Member for East Hampshire posed a question earlier, if young people were asked, if we could switch this off for everyone, would you? Lots of them would actually say, yes, I would. But there's this phenomenon, my teenagers tell me it's called FOMO, fear of missing out. That means that they have to simultaneously be in a space whilst not wanting to be in that space all the time. Because where in our generation, you could find school difficult, but you could go home from school and you could switch off. For many children today, it's the first thing that they experience when they wake up in the morning is the notifications from the night before, and it's the last thing they see when they go to bed at night. So I think we do need to regulate. And we regulate childhood already in various ways to protect children. Laws which prevent children from going to nightclubs, the requirement for DBS checks to protect children from coming into contact with adults around whom they wouldn't be safe, and even film classification ratings. And a huge industry around this, and yet the content that children can access on Facebook, were it to be classified by a film classifier, we would say that they're not old enough often to be seeing that regular content. And as the Honourable Member for Basingstoke said earlier, many children and young people actually agree with the benefits of limiting social media. Before I was in this place, one of the roles I had was to tutor in various North East high schools, and often our conversation in seminars would turn to this challenge of mental health, and a lot of young people talk to me about how simultaneously they can feel lonely whilst also being overly connected and not having a place to switch off. Girls at Teesdale School, which was my first visit as a new Member of Parliament, also talked to me about a changing in attitudes that they saw amongst many of the young men that they go to school with. Increase in misogyny in the way that the young men would treat them because of far-right content that those young men were accessing. So what can be done? People have spoken for and against an outright ban, and I think that there are merits to all of those arguments, actually. And some have highlighted the challenge of simply banning things. Having said that, we do need to consider an age of consent. And we need, I think, not just a legal shift, but a cultural shift. Greater parental controls and greater support for parents to supervise what their children are viewing. Perhaps time limit controls that force a child to be switched off. Education does already exist, but we know that it's not yet effective. And perhaps we need an education that looks not just at the don'ts, at the warnings to young people, but also at the do's, a reimagining of childhood. We need to provide fewer virtual experiences and more real experiences for our children. I think about my own childhood, learning an instrument, after-school sports, riding my bike around the block, attending a weekly youth club, going for a walk and bopping along to my Walkman. And yes, also being bored, being able to just take in the world around me. We also need, children need more family time, and I think we need to be real that one of the things that's driving this smartphone use in children, and every parent feels the guilt around this, is that parents are often less present in their children's lives. This is why I was proud to support Usdaws' campaign to keep Sunday special with relation to Sunday trading laws. And it's why I support flexible working and other laws, thinking about the world of work to make sure that families can have time together. So in conclusion, there are many things that need to be considered, but what I think we all agree on is that we cannot allow the status quo to continue, and that it is imperative that as a parliament and as a government that we consider how to better safeguard our children's future.